Do you want to travel, but you can think of a million reasons why not to travel, primarily because you're so frugal and you're worried about the cost? Well, stick around for 9 tips from me for cheap travel so that you can travel as much as you want and enjoy your frugal living journey. And stick around to the end for an inspiring quote that you do not want to miss. Welcome, I'm Amy, and here at the Frugal Diaries, I give you tips and tools for frugal living. Let's talk about these travel tips. This is the second of a 2-part series on travel tips for frugal people. Check out the first one linked above and in the description below. And then let's talk about 9 tips that I have for you today. Number 1, if you really want to make travel a priority in your life, and I think that many of us do, you need to think about where you can cut back. What I mean by this is not that you're going to cut back on trips that you want to take necessarily, or even to cut back while you're on the trip. But before you go on the trip, while you're getting ready for the trip, think about what you can cut back here at home. Can you cut back on extra food? And I'm thinking here in terms of if you want to make travel a significant priority in your life, maybe you will not stock up for 6 months worth of food at home because you're going to be traveling and you would rather use that money for saving for travel. You might think about not buying extra clothing because when you're traveling, generally you don't need a lot of clothing anyway. You might think about simplifying what you purchase for your home so that you can put money into your travel budget. Think about anything that you can cut back, whether it's a small thing or a big thing. Also think here about activities and entertainments that you do at home that cost you some money, and that if you didn't do those, you would have that money to save for travel. This has to do with shifting your priorities from entertainments at home to entertainments on the road or in another part of the world. But think about what can you cut back. I have a question for those of you who are experienced and frugal travelers. What have you cut back on at home so that you could add to your travel budget and your travel enjoyment? Number 2, look for ways to increase your income. This is usually a standard recommendation for frugal people in general. Cut back and then increase your income. And applying it to travel means that you're applying it to something that really matters to you. How do you increase your income? A lot of you folks have told me that you increase your income by selling things that you find around the house when you're decluttering, for instance. By the way, I have a great video on decluttering. I'd love to have you go back and watch that. Now, if you are selling things, you may discover that you don't need as much space as you have, and you could earn some income from selling your house or from renting out a portion of it if your home is situated so that you can do that. You might take on a side hustle, a side job of some kind, or start a small business of your own. And the advantage of starting a small business of your own, even if it's a side hustle, is that you can continue that going while you're on your trip so that you have income coming in while you are traveling as well. There are folks who also go to the extreme of looking for a new job, a job that specifically puts travel in the picture so that they don't have to be tied to, say, going to an office or even working from home, but being in a particular location. Instead, they could travel for their job, travel with their job. These are the kinds of things that you want to think about when you're thinking about increasing income. Look at everything from that thing around the house that you haven't used for a while. Would somebody else want it, and could you make some money off of it? All the way to, could I move and could I get a different job in order to make travel possible? Number 3, pad your travel budget. We all know that anytime you go on a trip, you're going to have a wonderful new opportunity that wasn't in any of the guidebooks or that wasn't available when you made the plan for your trip, and it's going to cost some money. And then you're going to have that 1 or 2 challenges, maybe small, maybe big, that cost money as well. Things that you couldn't have predicted, things that you couldn't have planned for. So pad your budget to allow for that excitingly wonderful thing that just came up as an opportunity, or for that not so great thing that you have to deal with as a challenge. If you pad your budget so that it's not just bare bones, you will actually enjoy your trip, and it'll be cheaper in the long run because you will have planned for it and you won't go into debt. You'll come home ready to go on with your life. Number 4, plan your food, your water, your lodging, your transport, your activities as much as possible ahead of time. Notice that so far all of these tips are happening long before you take your trip, because the key to cheap travel really is advanced planning and building your life around the priority of travel. Think about from the moment you leave your house to the moment you walk back in the door. What will you need for food? what will you need for transportation, what will you need for lodging, what will you need for activities, what will you need generally in order to make this trip a success, and plan as much as possible and plan in as much detail as possible. You've already padded your budget for unexpected expenses. Now make sure you have as few unexpected expenses as possible by planning as much as you can. If you're getting value out of this video, would you give it a like and consider subscribing and hit that notification bell so you'll get notified first of new videos. If you'd like to contribute to the growth of the channel, join me over at Buy Me a Coffee, where you can make a one-time contribution or become a monthly member. Thank you to those of you who have done both of those things. I also want to say a special thanks to everybody who has subscribed and joined the channel and commented. I really appreciate you being here. I've been away for a while at the time that I'm recording this, and I wanted to come back to our usual comfortable spot right here at my desk just to remind us that whether we travel the world or whether we are around the world together, we are not alone. Let's get back to these tips. Number 5, learn about your destination. This can really apply to anything from a trip across town to a trip across the world. I remember my father lived in the same city for the last 25 years of his life, and he loved constantly exploring new things. So even as he got too old to feel comfortable taking trips far from home, he would find new places in his community that he could go and visit. And he would learn about their history, and then he would share it with us. And we came to have a great love for his home because of how much he loved it. You can apply the same principle if you're traveling someplace that you have never been before. Learn about the real story of the place. What's its history? What are its people like? What is the language? What are the customs? You can't learn everything in a short study or in a short trip, or even if you lived there for a year or two. But when you know the real people and the real place, your enjoyment is enhanced, your ability to get good deals on things while you're there is enhanced, because you might actually get to know the real people who live there. As another example, I live in a part of the world that is heavily dependent on tourism for our economy. But people who come here and get away from the tourist areas and learn the local languages and learn the local customs and get to know the local people often discover a much richer enjoyment and a true respect for this place. And so they come here with respect and love for the place, and they leave here with even greater respect and love for the place. And it means so much to know that people love where I live. Do you love where you live? Would you like to have somebody come and get to know the real you, the real place? That's the spirit in which I want you to learn about every place that you travel. Number 6, think of quirky ways to save money on your trip. I did talk about this a little bit last time in part 1 of this travel series. I talked about how something that I did that seemed to have spent money actually ended up saving money and giving a better quality of experience. I collect frequent flyer miles on my travels, and I was able to use the frequent flyer miles to get myself an annual membership to my favorite airline's airport club. And along with that, I could bring in a companion for a one-time fee. I calculated out the cost of using the flyer miles and then bringing the companion in for a one-time fee, and it came out to be cheaper in terms of cash expenses than it would have been to just sit down in the terminal on a long layover and keep buying food and drinks and just having such a noisy and unpleasant time. It was really quirky, and it seemed to me to be sort of self-indulgent to buy a membership at an airport club. Isn't this what businessmen did in the 1960s? But it worked out to be a wonderfully frugal choice, and it made the entire trip and all future trips for this year seem much more pleasant and seem much more possible. Think about things like this that seem odd or self-indulgent or just unusual, and see if they end up saving you money. You may be thinking of something totally different. What quirky things have you done to save money either on your travels or in preparation for your travels? I'm so curious. Number 7, you've finally gotten to your destination. Now plan time to rest. In fact, you should probably plan on this before you go, because here's the thing. If you go on a whirlwind trip, it might seem like it costs less. But if you're tired, if you're jet lagged, if you haven't studied the local customs and you don't know anything about the local situation, you're going to end up spending money just willy-nilly because you're tired, because you're uncomfortable, because you don't know what's going on. If you plan time to rest at the beginning of your journey, just when you get there, even if it's just a day or two out of your itinerary, everything else will feel more pleasant. It'll feel more possible. You'll find the best deals. You'll be able to get rest, and you'll be able to think and make plans while you're on the trip. You'll be able to enjoy things so much more. And frugal living and enjoyment really do go hand in hand. So plan time to rest. Number 8, while you are on your trip, have fun. This seems like a silly thing for me to say because for most of us when we travel in the way that I'm talking about, we're going specifically to have fun. But make sure that you actually do have fun. This may mean not doing those things that all of those blog articles you read said you should do on the trip, but instead doing something that really fits with your travel priorities. Do you love to go to art museums? Do that. Do you love to go hiking? Do that. Do you love to just sit in coffee shops and watch people go by? Do that. Do you love to visit gardens? Do that. Do you love a working trip because you have changed your job so that you can live and work in anywhere in the world? Do you love to just sit anywhere and work on your laptop and then go out for a nice dinner? Whatever it is that you love to do, have fun with it and don't let anybody else define what counts as fun for you. And last but not least, when you get home, learn from your experience and plan your next trip. Whether the trip that you just got back from was one of the most wonderful things you've ever done in your life or one of the most unpleasant things you've ever done in your life or anywhere in between, learn from it and travel again. What did you like about the place? Would you like to go back? Would you like to go somewhere different? What about your mode of travel? What about the food that you ate? Did you have enough time to rest? Did you really have as much fun as you want? What priorities do you need to change in your daily life so that you can do more with the travel priorities that you have in the future? Living in one place and traveling a lot, it's a thing. It's constantly needing to be rebalanced. So learn and plan and do it again. Our quote for today comes from Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and author Anna Quindlen, who said this: "The life you have led does not have to be the only life you have." So join me and travel well. Wherever you are on your frugal living journey, take the next step, whatever that next step is for you, and know that you are not alone, and I am so proud of you. Live frugally, change your life, and together we will change the world. I can't wait to see you again soon. Bye-bye.